Good evening. I'm Mayor Ken Cockayne, and before we start, I just want to introduce Councilman Calvin Brown. He's one of our newly elected this year, so the rest of our delegation here in Bristol have meetings tonight, so that's why you don't see him. We all have a busy schedule. But it's my pleasure to announce Congressman Larson. He's come into town to give us an update on, I'm assuming, the President's address last night, as well as what fun things are happening up in Washington.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me start by, it's always great to be back in Bristol, and I was just here a week ago with the mayor as we were out at the Senior Center talking about a number of the concerns around Medicare and the Affordable Care Act, and in general concerns that a number of seniors have, and especially I want to commend the mayor and the City Council for their hard work, but the mayor especially has rolled up his sleeves with respect to keeping the Social Security office here, and has been instrumental in coming up with alternatives, and that's what you like to see in individuals in public service that are got their sleeves rolled up and ready to work on behalf of the people. It's also a source of pride to see Kelvin here as well, who started on our youth cabinet and was a leader in that prospect, and have watched him grow and graduate from Central Connecticut, and of course now to become an elected official here in Bristol on its council. See my old dear friend and former state senator Tom Calipetro back here is great as well. So good to be back here in Bristol. I just wanted to, as we make a custom of going around the district and conducting forums, and I always think it's especially important after a State of the Union message to get out and to get back to the public. So we have, and hopefully all of you have gotten a copy of the President's remarks last night, where you had the opportunity to hear the President and view it, if you were able to stay up that late, on television last evening. I always think it's a high honor. It's one of the few times when the whole chamber of the House of Representatives is filled with not only the House and the Senate, but the entire embassy corps from nations all around the world, and of course our Supreme Court and all the cabinet members of the President. So it is quite an evening where the President gives his projections on the State of the Union and emphasizes the areas that he believes the country should be moving in. I thought the President did an extraordinary job, very practical, very pragmatic, eloquent, and focused on the people that were sworn to serve, and especially with emphasizing the need to create opportunity, with an added emphasis on jobs. And jobs and job creation is what it's all about. At the end of the day, I've been serving in government for some time now, starting on the Board of Education in my local community. And I can say, coming from a community like East Hartford, very similar to Bristol, we don't have ESPN, but we do have Augie and Ray's. And it's coming from a community, being one of 8 children, having watched both my parents work and be the first member of my family to graduate college. You know and understand and appreciate a sacrifice, but more importantly, the dignity that comes from work. And my dad worked 3 jobs. We barely saw him, but he did it because he knew it was important. He otherwise couldn't raise 8 children and make sure that even though he nor my mother went to college, their 8 children all did it. And that's the kind of thing that parents today are attempting to do. And the middle class in our country is under an incredible squeeze and pressure. And American people are working harder than they ever have before. We're working harder, longer, and more productive than almost any other nation in the world. And one of the things that the president addressed last night is the inequality gap that exists in this country. He started, and I think the largest applause of the evening came when he said that women comprise of over half the workforce in the country, more than half the workforce. And yet, for every dollar that a male earns, a woman earns 77 cents. He said this is 2014. This is no longer the era of Mad Men, the famous AMC program that was on depicting life in the 50s and 60s. This is 2014. And it's long overdue, and he used a phrase that has been coined before, but when women in America are doing well, America does well. And so we have a number of things on that front that have been introduced in terms of legislation. Rosa DeLauro, my colleague from New Haven, brought Lily Ledbetter, was her guest last night. You may recall she is the famous individual who stood up to make sure and lost her job and at much risk to make sure that she was paid the same wages as her male counterpart, oftentimes for doing more work and working longer than they were. So, all in all, I appreciate the optimism that the president brought forward, but also a need for the country to pull together and for the Congress to get over the obstructionism and come together. Clearly, there's not a time when I'm home in this district when people don't say to me, I don't understand it, why can't you guys just work together and get the job done on behalf of the American people? I'm proud to say that even though we're in the minority in the House of Representatives, that I've had the opportunity to work with Republicans on the other side of the aisle, had the opportunity to bring 3 of them to this district to talk about the infrastructure needs, to talk about roads, bridges, sewage systems, schools, broadband, deep harbors, high-speed rail, the need for us to pull the country together in a way that investing in this country has always served the American people and put its people to work in a time when we especially need it. We are still recovering from the worst recession since the Great Depression. And while the private sector has created 8 million new jobs, the economy has still been sluggish. And in the context of that economy, as I said earlier, people are working longer, harder, and for less. And that's the inequality that the president sought to address last evening in his remarks. He encouraged Congress to take up the minimum wage bill. I'm proud to be a co-author of it. I introduced my own bill that actually was $11, but the bill that the president heralded last night was one by George Miller and Senator Harkin in the Senate. It has more sponsors than mine, but there are several proposals. But he also insisted that minimum wage is something that could be taken up anywhere in the state of Connecticut and in any situation, and then of course issued his federal proclamation last night that he signed, I believe, today, that would provide for $10.10 for every federal project where people were working on. He utilized his executive authority to ensure that that wage, the minimum wage on that job, would be $10.10. It's our sincere hope that we can get a vote on the bill. If we were allowed even a vote on a bill, I would be happy with that. But I think America is there, and frankly, I think the most of the Congress is there as well.